I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Newburyport School Committee meeting for Monday, May 15th. Let's see. How about Angela? Why don't you call the roll?
Okay, I'll be happy to. Bruce Menon,
Here.
Brian Callahan,
Here.
Mayor Holliday,
Here.
Sean Reardon,
Here.
David Hawkeiser,
Here.
Steve
Not yet.
absent,
And Sheila?
and Sheila Spalding.
Here.
It's always the new kid that's last, you know.
Sorry, Sheila.
Anyway, we have a quorum and we are ready to begin. Thank you. Could we please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? You'll notice in Bruce's screen, there is an American flag behind. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for
which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Bruce, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. We are at our period of public comment, and I would make just a couple of comments before we open that up. One is that as Sean Gallagher has informed us, we are broadcasting live on both YouTube and on Channel 9, Port Media Hub. If you have any public comment that you would like to make, we would ask you to try to stay within 2 minutes, announce your name and address so that we can get that for the record. And Sean, you're the one who's gonna be figuring out who wants to talk by having them raise their hand?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if you would just raise your hand, Sean Gallagher will know to unmute you. Do we have anybody, Sean?
I don't see anyone on my end. Do you see anyone on your end? Participants?
Nope.
No.
Okay, having no public comment at this point, we will move to the consent agenda, which has to wait for Steve in terms of warrants, but we do have 2 sets of minutes to approve. The first set of minutes are for 4/28/2020. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments, changes, anything you've noticed? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. And right now, Mr. Cole is absent. We have a set of minutes from 5/4/2020. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Great. Any discussion, any changes, additions? Anything
There
missing?
is an error. I think it's page 4. We were, it's, I don't know if they're referring to the mayor or Sean Gallagher, but they said Mayor Gallagher.
Ah,
You
two
and
roles. Okay, I'm leaving.
Sean, you're such an ambitious guy.
Yeah, there you go.
You gotta
Thanks for
move to the
picking up on
community
that,
first,
Sheila.
though. Good spot, Sheila.
Yep.
All right. Aside from that one change, are there any additional changes? All right. Nice, Nancy. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously with Mr. Cole absent. Let us know when Mr. Cole re-enters, Sean, and we'll go back to the warrants.
Okay.
I'm going to turn it over to you now. We have next item on our agenda is international field trips. And I think there's a short presentation.
Yes, so I have Miss Marconi, who I'm unmuting now. And then Mr. Wolf. There he is. Can you both hear us?
We can.
Awesome. All right. So this is obviously the international field trips. There was information that was presented back in the fall. And there are some deadlines and decisions that the school committee, I think, needs to make collectively. So at this time, I'll have Ms. Marconi and Mr. Wolf kind of give a summary Obviously, back in the fall and early winter, the times are a lot different. And we were really excited about these trips, but we just wanted to have a summary and kind of what you need the school committee to decide on.
Great, thank you, Sean. I'm going to let Aileen do a majority of the talking because she has all of the information. But ultimately, what it comes down to with the experience that we had back in March with the Galapagos trips, there's a lot of important deadlines that have financial implications for our families. And that's part of the reason why Aileen is here. And she's done some work with the companies that she had contracted with over a year ago to push out some of these deadlines to help us out a little bit. But Aileen, I'll really let you get into the whole scope of things.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wolf. Before I begin, I just wanted to say that, as you know, we went to the Dominican Republic this year, and it was a phenomenal trip. And I just wanted to share with you on the way home. I had the students, I gave them postcards I bought, and I had them write postcards to themselves, which I'm mailing tomorrow. And I thought I'd just read one to you just because it's very heartwarming. I'm going to leave out the name. Okay. I'm currently sitting on the plane going home from the DR. I had such an amazing trip and learned many new things and now see life a little differently. One of my favorite parts of the trip was the service work and learning about coral and the ocean. It made me feel good to be helping a poor community. Adios. So the funny thing is that I'm going to cover up the name. Even though I went over how to use a postcard, these guys never have. So some of these I'm mailing in envelopes because I can't mail them as postcards.
It's a lost art, postcard.
It absolutely is. All right. Well, anyways, let's talk about trips that are in the process of being planned. So we have the International Culture Club that I advise has 2 trips scheduled for 2021. The first trip is a trip to Greece in April of 2021. The requested time of the trip was April 16th to the 24th, which is over the school vacation, with 1 day that we would be missing. The number of students that are currently signed up are 25, and the cutoff is 36. The number of chaperones will be 1 per every 6 students. We have several staff members who are of Greek heritage or actually were born and raised in Greece. And so working with them, trying to really customize and make our trip a really personal and educational experience is kind of exciting. As you can see, you should have all this paperwork, by the way, that I sent out as a package. The cost of this trip is $3,800, and that includes everything except for lunches. It will include also, we will be visiting a couple of the islands, so it includes cruises and all that kind of stuff, but most of our time will be on the mainland. Now I sent you an itinerary for the trip. We'll be starting in Athens, and we'll visit a lot of the major archaeological sites, and really have a focus on the mythology of ancient Greece. And we'll also, of course, be looking at the culture of Greece, and like the foods and the festivals and the music. So our fundraising has already started. We had a Mr. India special, and we raised over $400. And Mr. India continues that with a 15% donation if you mention Newburyport High School anytime you order a meal there. We also had a Shaw's fundraiser, and we raised about, if I can remember correctly, it was around $1,500. I forgot to write down the amount. And we do have other fundraisers in the planning. Students that are on this trip, will be able to take a college course if they should like. There will be a small nominal fee for that, but it makes it very affordable to get college credit. There's also other opportunities for educational experience, like writing your college letter. There's an opportunity for that through the program, and also for high school, especially connects a lot with the Sophomore Expo. And I forgot to mention, this is through EF Tours, who I've been working with. This will be my 7th trip with them. Now, the reason I wanted to present this to you at this time and to seek school board approval is that we do have to make decisions about what we might want to do about trips with what's going on. So we're very excited about the trip, and the parents have been, and the students have been very excited about it, and they continue to be so. But we are looking for the school committee to make a decision because there is a school board guarantee. So both trips, the second one I'm going to present you to, which will take less time because I'm covering most things with this one. Both trips have this. The school board guarantee goes out to June 18th, so a decision doesn't actually have to be made tonight. But what does it do? It allows the school board to make a decision that if you should decide that we should not go forward at this time, based on all the factors that you bring into play, as long as we notify the companies by June 18th, then families will get a 100% refund. And this even includes the non-refundable deposit, which was $95 or $99, depending on the trip. So people will get back all of their money. Of course, that means the trip would be canceled and we wouldn't have that this educational opportunity. Now, after June 18th, then that school board guarantee ends and we go forward with the trip. That said, the companies are preparing packages to help families with this strange new world that we are in. Hopefully by spring of next year, we should be moving forward and having no problems. And one of the trips is even for the summertime. But I did want to go over that there are a couple things that the companies are doing. One is that currently our families do have travel insurance. They have a normal travel insurance plan, and it protects them for specific circumstances, like if a student became ill before traveling, or if they're ill while traveling, if the parent loses their job and is on unemployment, if there's a death or some type of serious illness in the family, things like that. So there are specific reasons. If there's a natural disaster or something, or such, those normal things that are usually set up are covered for. And then a family would get back most of the money from the trip. There'll be some small amounts that are non-refundable. But it's not a cancel for any reason policy. That said, both companies are in the process of preparing cancel for anything policies, and they don't have all the information finalized yet, and they expect that by mid-June. But I doubt that anyone that's currently signed up, this is my own thoughts, would probably qualify for a cancel for anything policy, because you usually have to get those ahead of the time, at the time when you're purchasing your trip. Usually you have like a 2 to 14 day window. Okay. Now there's a cancel for any reason. What it does allow you to do is to cancel for any reason, but it doesn't mean you get all your money back either. No policy out there that I see gives 100% back without it being super beyond cost that would make sense. Okay. Most of them get back between 50 and 75% of the non-refundable amounts, and of course give back fully the refundable amounts. So all this information I sent to you guys. And what we're looking at is that the companies are putting together some things that, again, will be available by mid-June, before the June 18th deadline. So I wanted to start the process of having you think about these trips, think about, what the school feels is doable, and know that we have this deadline that is coming up. I will mention that the other trip will be in the summer. It is a smaller trip to Australia. There are 8 travelers. This one I opened up for parents and students. So I have 2 parents and the rest are students that are going. And the same situation there. One difference is that they have 3 tier levels on their insurance, and the people who got the basic, there were 3 travelers got the basic. They are going to be allowed to upgrade if we should go forward with the trip. That company is World Strides, Explorica, and they are a company very similar to EF. And I just simply went with them over EF for this particular trip because at the time it was for the pricing and the activities that they had going on. So anyways, I did send out a full package, including the school board guarantee letter so that you have that available to you. And as soon as I have other information, I can give that to you if you aren't making a decision tonight. But the families are very excited about the trips. We're excited and hopeful to go forward with them. And so that's my information. Besides questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Eileen. I just had a couple of very quick questions. So what you really need is an affirmation that the school committee supports the vacation before June 18th?
Correct.
Okay, so we would have at least one additional school committee meeting between now and then, probably 2.
Right.
To take a vote on that. And is your recommendation that we think this through, ask some questions now, and then sort of hold off until we're sure that the families have access to that additional insurance before we vote? Hopefully it'll be there
Yes.
before the 18th.
Yes, that's my recommendation. I think that, every day new information is coming in about where we're at. Both places that we're traveling to actually had done exceptional with the COVID virus and have been rated as top countries as far as how they've handled the epidemic. They've had very low occurrence and have done, and they're in the process of opening up right now. But there's new information coming out all the time, and I think you need that time to really sort of reflect of what the school wants to do. Because it's in your hands about thinking about what makes the most sense for our students. And I can gather more information. And also if you should want to talk to the people that I'm talking to there, maybe a school committee member would like to have more of a direct conversation just to feel the most comfortable, then I'm open to being able to connect you to the people so that you can have those conversations with them. Or I can share any questions that you might have that come up.
Okay. Looks like our next school committee meeting is June 1st, and then we would have another one on the 15th.
Right.
Are there other questions that other school committee members have?
I have a question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Mine's more procedural. It's not to do the trip, which sounds awesome. And my kid's going, so we've been paying for it since February or something. And when it came up, I was remembering the previous trip, and I always thought it was funny that we had to say yes, you guys can go, right? And I know it's a state law and all that stuff. So I was just looking it up, and I think we have to either change the time frame in which we're voting on these trips, or go and change the policy, because it says the approval process should be completed prior to engaging students in fundraising or other preparations. And if parents are already into it for somewhere near $700 at this point, us saying yes or no is, I mean, the school committee would never say no, right, to one of these trips. So I know it's kind of required for whatever reason, a 2003 DESI law. So I don't know if we need to have policy get together and think about rewording what our actual policy is, because if we're not supposed to even hear about it, hear about fundraising or anything like that until after the final school committee approval has been given. We're kind of doing it backwards. So I know you started early, Aileen, but can you can your group, or whenever you get these come up, can you be earlier still? I know we started in like October, right? That was in the initial district email went out, so I don't know how much earlier you could start, but it's kind of like families are already into it now before school committee even really heard about it. You know what I mean? Am I being clear?
Yeah, I don't know what the exact rules are with DESI, so that would be interesting to see. How we've worked it for the past several years is that typically the trips are offered most often in the fall, sometimes in the spring. And there's like to allow for like 18 months to be able to prepare and pay for the trip. And usually the school committee meeting comes about 6 months after we started the process. And the only reason why that has been the way we've always done it is that it allows for us to go get 6 months in there, make sure everything is going well. And we have the school committee guarantee for every time we go to travel. And if the school committee said back in the fall, yes, go for the trip. And then at that time, we didn't know about coronavirus. So the further out we can push the school committee saying yes, the more likely we are that if there is some kind of circumstance that we could, the school committee could, of course, say no, and then families would get their full money back. And so that was always the reason why I did it anyways, with the idea of going to the principal and telling them what trips were in the agenda to want to be able to do. That happened in the fall. Present to families, get them on board, and then wait until as far as we can before getting the school committee approval. Maybe there's something whereby the school committee could be involved without giving approval earlier, but I don't know how that procedure exactly goes.
Right. I
Might
mean,
be
I don't want to be violating policy just because no one knew about it, type of thing, you know?
Right.
Right, the policy says that we're supposed to vote and approve the trip before you start interacting with students and raising money and getting families involved.
So I think we should look into changing that, right? Or
Yeah, I
something
think-
with the language, you know?
Yeah, no, I would suggest we take a look at the language, given the sort of the reality of what kind of lead time they need. Let's have a conversation with that at policy. I also wonder if they were generically fundraising for these field trips without them being specific for a period of time, whether that would also meet the policy as it currently exists, since they're not raising money for a specific trip, but just generically for these field trips. I don't know, but
I
give
could
it to
say one
policy.
thing about that on my program is that we're a club, the International Culture Club, and we're raising money for the club. And we have used it. I mean, most of the money we do use to support helping with the cost of trips that students that are in the club go on. But we've also used it for field trips, like we took students to Chinatown one time. And we've used it for guest speakers or special functions, like we had a Cuban music festival another time at the church up the road, and I'm having a mind block for a moment, the name of the church. So it's been used to do things during the school year as well. We've applied, and we've also used the fundraising to help with local aid to the places that we're going to as well. So there has that aspect of it. When we fundraise, we're fundraising for the International Culture Club.
Right, well, if policy wants to take it up, that certainly
Yeah.
makes sense. We can
Yeah,
have a
we can
fuller
look at it. I mean,
discussion.
I guess I'm trying to figure out the wording. What was the expression? School committee guarantee?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
School board guarantees, I think, is what they actually term it. It's in the letters I sent you to both the letters from both
Yeah.
companies.
Right, I'm gonna have to read more specifically about what it is we're guaranteeing. I mean, that whole, That
We're
makes
not
me very-
guaranteeing, that is coming from the companies. They guarantee that at the time when we present the program to the school board, if the school board should turn down the trip, then all monies are refunded to the families.
Oh, so they give you a guarantee
Mhm.
that you can start saving money towards the trip without having school board approval.
Right.
Correct.
And then
And the
once.
dates for these trips are June 18th, which is why we felt like it was important to get in front of the school committee to give a little bit of time for some discussion.
That was my
Oh, yeah.
question. Do you have any wiggle room with those dates? Can you push back and ask for an extension? Because June 18th.
Actually, the original dates were in the beginning of April, and I pushed them out to well, one company was June 18th, EF. The other company was the beginning of April, and then I pushed them out to the end of May, and then I pushed them out yesterday to June 18th, so they're both on the same date. I could try to push them out further still, and they might be open to that because, you know, obviously they really want to work with schools and to help you to be able to make a good decision. But there's also a point in time when they start to expend money on these trips for their vendors. And so I don't know when how far out I can push them, but I can try tomorrow to see if they'll go a little bit further. Did you have a specific sort of deadline in mind?
Well, if it's going to go out any farther than the 18th of June, you'd want to look at when our next school committee meeting is. Actually, do we have one? Yeah, we have one in July, I think.
I don't think we do.
No, we
No,
don't.
usually,
Usually.
Oh, yeah, usually, yeah. We've usually done one in August is
August.
what's happened.
August when we reconvene.
Yeah, so I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. We wouldn't be convening again after the 15th until sometime in August.
Yeah. So I can ask them certainly. I'm not sure if they'll go beyond the June 18th deadline because it's usually within a school year is their policies.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, and I think we have the usual questions about, you know, what accommodations are being made for students who are not going to be able to afford the full freight. Those kinds of questions, and you've answered some of them already.
Right. We have, I have already been able to help one student that family had some needs. Obviously, I would have done a lot more by now. And I'm a little bit behind on that because it's me doing all that work to find monies for the families who have needs for it. But you know, I'll do the same normal stuff every year that I do to drum money. We do have several actions that we're going to be taking over the summer to raise monies, and some of that specifically to help families that have need for the financial help.
Okay.
I just have
Well-
one quick question. How many seniors have signed up, like going into next year that would be seniors? So if there was a postponement,
Yeah, there's always it's always a trip made up of sophomores and seniors. Let me see if I can quickly bring up my thing here. Just give me 1 second. I'm not sure if I can totally answer that because I don't have the full list in front of me. There are a lot of sophomores on the trip. I know that.
well, if you don't have it now, maybe after
Yeah.
tonight, you could provide that and I could
Yes.
send that out to school committee because.
Yeah, I can shoot that to you after we're done talking.
Perfect.
What's the will of the committee on this?
Can I ask a question? I'm concerned. I know that the trips you have run, Eileen, have been phenomenal. There's no question about it, and how much the students have gained from it. But, you know, we don't have a vaccine yet. We're talking about the potential of a resurgence in next winter. What happens if somebody gets sick with COVID? What happens if you're all quarantined over there? I mean, I don't mean to be the bearer of all the, doom and gloom, but I'm worried about this. And I love the trips that you've done. Honestly, they've been phenomenal. I think that, in terms of voting on this, if you could find for me, are there other school districts in the state that are going to proceed with international travel next year? Are most of them canceling? Are people going forward? And planes aren't the safest place to be at this juncture. So I just, I'd like a little more information, like what happens if there is, someone not just gets sick on a trip and gets a cold or a flu or a strep throat, but what happens if there is a resurgence of this nasty virus, and, what's the plan with the company in terms of dealing with that? And also, I think having additional insurance for families is really important, where they can recoup a lot of their money, because things could be canceled. Who knows, what's going to happen after the fall. But I'd really like to know how many schools are continuing international
Right.
programming at this point.
Sure,
before
I can find that out from you and get some numbers, or at least let you know maybe some local districts what they're thinking.
Okay, and really concrete plans for if something does happen, with this,
Well, that is one of the reasons why I do like to work with companies like EF and Worldwide.
of course.
They are, EF, for instance, is the largest company in educational travel in the world, and they have offices in over 50 countries, including Australia. And they are able to be very quick to respond to things. I mean, for instance, they had a lot of trips going on right when the COVID first broke out in both China and in Europe, and they were able to bring all their travelers home very quickly. And they've had other instances like when of situations that have happened and have been able to other like natural catastrophes and that, where they've been able to move their travelers. One time where travelers couldn't come home, and that was when the volcano in Iceland went off, and there were people stuck for, I think, over a week in Europe. And so they just were able to give people an extended tour until, and at no cost to the travelers. It's part of their program. And then once finally air flight was safe again, they were able to bring people home. But on that occasion, people actually were stuck in Paris and then Belgium and whatever. Or
Well, there were students, what is it, Westminster this past spring, that were stuck in South America for an extended period of time and couldn't get out. They finally had to send a private plane to get them. I mean, these are things that concern me. I just,
that's why I wanted to bring it up to you.
Right.
Because we have the school committee guarantee, and if you guys approve the trip, then we go into the sort of the normal refunds, which would include cancellation fees. If a person wanted the money back, versus vouchers, which are, you can get 100% of your cost and use it in a voucher for a going to a language school. EF happens to have, and Worldwide, they have a variety of programs. You can use it for future travel, a gap year, etc. But the getting 100% of your money back only comes at this time if you guys don't feel comfortable. This is the time to make that decision.
Are families currently able on their own to get their 100% of their money back?
I saw you broke up.
Are families currently able on their own to get 100% of their money back if they wanted?
No, they would
So-
they would get the earlier into the process that they cancel, the smaller the cancellation fee is.
Right. So I'm just thinking, like, as far as the buyer beware kind of thing, that hasn't changed much for the families. You're
Correct.
just saying that we can give them an out. And
Mhm.
I guess I would just be curious if EF is looking into any sort of extra type of cancellation policy because of COVID. Like, I know airlines canceled and refunded money in ways that they never would have in the past.
Mhm.
Airbnb has done sort of the same thing. So I'm just curious I would be curious to know if EF is taking the pandemic as an extra layer of monetary precaution.
Right, they did for current trips. That's one of the things that by mid-June, they should have an update on what they're going to propose in the fall for the trips of 2021.
Okay,
And that's another reason I thought, like I want to present everything now. I mean, if you, depending on your feelings and your thoughts, and maybe you're ready to make a vote, or if you wanted to wait until June 15th, that would still give us the time to say yes or no. And if it's no, to notify the companies. One company, I just need to send an email myself. And the other one, we just need to send a letter to. They do need to receive that letter on the 18th. But I'm sure I can talk to them about the fact that the 15th is when you're going to make the vote, and to give it enough time for that letter to go to them.
because the school district is not under any circumstances liable for
No.
any extraordinary fees that might occur if something way out of the ordinary, like the mayor is talking about, happens.
No, that would be beholding of the company and of the if in any case an insurance actionable occurrence occurs, then the insurance company would take care of that.
Okay,
So I guess at this point, the mayor is requesting that we hold off our vote until more information becomes available. We'll see by our next meeting whether some of that information is available. If not, hopefully it'll be available by the following meeting. And why don't we hold off, and Aileen and Andy, we will let you know if we, what meeting we're going to take the vote at.
Okay,
Thank
that'd
you.
be great.
Does that seem reasonable to the committee?
Yes,
yes.
Okay. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
thank you for the updates.
Are we sure that Steve Cole is not in the waiting room somewhere?
He's trying, Joanne's still here and he's working with Joanne trying to get on. They're
Okay.
having difficulty getting on both.
Okay,
Both people.
okay. Why don't we
Oh,
move?
I see, Steve Cole I think he might be in. Let's hold on.
There he is.
He's in here, yes. I just have to unmute him. Actually. Steve, I think you gotta turn your mic on.
Yeah, yes, no mic.
I don't see
Connecting now.
oh, he is? Oh, perfect.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, great, Steve.
Yeah.
There was a little more difficulty on this one because we're broadcasting live, so
Okay.
there was a couple extra
Yeah.
steps, I guess, built into
I
this.
wasn't going to give up. I appreciate Joanne's help.
Thank you. Yeah, Steve, we will do warrants probably at the end of the meeting if you have any.
Sounds good. Yeah, there are 3.
Okay, we have so far had a discussion about the international field trips. We're waiting for more information, and we'll either vote on June 1st or June 15th,
Okay.
whether we're thumbs up or thumbs down, depending
Okay.
on more information about some insurance safeguards for the families.
Sounds prudent.
Good. So thank you very much for continuing to try to get on here. We have the next item on our agenda, and there's a possible vote on it, is the cafeteria RFP discussion. I'm going to turn that over to Sean and to Nancy Lysick.
Perfect. Nancy, because of just for the school committee, because of the COVID and the shutdown, especially with RFPs for cafeteria and food service, the state has allowed continuation because a lot of the companies, obviously, they're not going to be able to come in, observe lunches and all of that, to roll over for 1 year, the RFP for Chartwell. So Nancy, did you want to follow up on that? You did a lot of work on that. She's probably muted, right? Yep. There you go, Nance.
Okay.
Okay, as you remember earlier in the year, I told you we were going out for an RFP for food services, which we did. However, because of the shutdown, Jesse wasn't able to approve the RFP, nor was there time for food service companies to come in and observe our lunches. So the Department of Education has issued a waiver for school districts that needed to get a new contract. What that allows us to do is extend our current contract with our existing company for 1 year. So it's the Families First Corona Response Act that allows the waiver and allows us to permit the school food authority to extend the existing contract that would not otherwise be eligible for extension through the FY21 school year. There are no extensions beyond June 30th, 2021. So the new contract would be with Chartwell's. It would be amendment number 5. The only change to it is a 3% increase in the administrative and management fees, which is normal. And as far as the break-even clause, as a general rule, the break-even clause is 15,000. In this contract, the break-even clause is up to the total amount of management fee, which would be about 17,000. Those are the only changes in the contract. And this would start September, it would go from July 1st through June 30th, 2021. So obviously what I would like the school committee to do is approve the 1-year extension with Chartwell's.
Thank you. Are there questions, comments for Nancy? I did have one question, Nancy. How did we get far enough along in the RFP process to actually have bids come in, or we never got the RFP written and posted?
The RFP was written and completed, but once it's written, I have to send it to the Department of Education for them to actually approve it. That's where it stayed. It
Okay.
never went any further than that.
So obviously what I was driving at was, did it seem like there were going to be other companies that were interested in bidding?
No idea, because it did not
Okay.
go public.
It didn't go, okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Other questions?
Yeah, but what am I supposed to do about all the meeting that I've missed?
Hold on one sec. Miss Kennedy just came in.
Yeah.
Miss Kennedy, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm on the
Mrs.
phone.
Kennedy,
Yes,
the meeting is being recorded, so there'll be a record of it. You'll be able to reconstruct the beginning of the meeting from the recording.
all right.
All
I never
right,
had anything so frustrating in my life.
I'm sorry that you were.
She's
With any
working on that.
consolation, we
Yeah.
had a school committee member who couldn't get in either.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
She's-
we'll iron the bugs out.
Yeah, Miss Kennedy's working under Joanne Yell's account, so
Good.
that's her alias tonight.
You can call me Joanne.
All right. Are there other questions or comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the 1-year extension?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Donna, we were going to ask you to give us whatever update is possible on the state and city fiscal situation. And then we will discuss the budget and budget priorities.
I don't have a lot of updates for you at this point, other than the what I spoke about to the education subcommittee, that there was Secretary Heffernan and his undersecretary and his liaison from the federal government was on a call last week. There was probably over 500 people on the call. It was relating to how the CARES Act will work. Now, I know that some money has come into the schools already through the stimulus relief package. This money is specifically for your COVID-19 expenses. And the state has been allocated $2.7 billion, million dollars. And no, billion, I'm sorry. And 1.6 has been allocated for Newburyport. And we are to, the billing period opened up today through June 5th is the first billing period relating to all COVID expenses. And the second billing period, we don't have a date, but it will cover expenses through December 31st. So, I mean, this is good news. You know, we have to do that in tandem with the FEMA money that is usually requested to be tapped first, which is, oh, I didn't realize which is 75% reimbursement and then tapping the balance 25% from CARES. But if things aren't going to be reimbursed from FEMA, it doesn't mean that it won't be reimbursed from CARES. So that's good news. And that it's not usually having to wait till after an event is over and then wait several years for reimbursement, which is typically the way FEMA works. So this is a good system in terms of setup. Did submit the quarterly 3/1/12 budgets to the council last Monday. They're deciding how they're going to look at a review of the budget this year. Obviously, it makes no sense to do these, you know, huge workshops with, you know, bringing in each of the departments to defend their budgets and talk about goals, objectives. That will happen when we put together a full year budget, hopefully in September. We still don't have numbers from the state, and we're being told that it's going to be a while in terms before we have those numbers. So at this point, we have put, I think, the best budget together for the city, both schools and city, identifying, covering all of our needs at this juncture. And, you know, I'm encouraged by, we have the HEROES Act. Again, that's money that will come directly to municipalities. So, you know, we're trying to keep ahead of the, you know, so many programs and grant programs that are popping up, foundations and aid to, you know, a lot of different sources. And as things become appropriate for the schools in the city, I'm really grateful that we have a good team and a grant writer who's beginning to look at all of these things. So right now, I'm very encouraged by the decisions that we have made collectively, and hopefully we can, you know, work collaboratively with the city council and get the budget passed. And in the meantime, start, you know, looking at any and all programs that potentially will help us with all the revenue losses we've had. But I believe that we've made the strongest decisions we can based on the limited information we have.
Thank you. Any questions for the mayor? Okay, keep us apprised, please,
Absolutely.
as this information drips out. Why don't we move to the conversation about the district budget and priorities? I'll turn that again over to Sean and Nancy.
Right. I'll see if we can share the screen here and hopefully open up. PowerPoint. All right, can you all see the PowerPoint?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, this is, you get the people in the middle with our masks and reminiscing over the year. We had the senior band open up, the first day teachers were back, and I'm showing the third grade recess flag football game. I was quarterback. I think I threw for 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
You're supposed to do that.
And that was with the bad knee, just so you know. I guess I have the new knee, so no, it's you know, time, you know, this year is there's a lot of new challenges, and can't wait to see the kids and and everyone back in school, hopefully sooner than later, but you know, we'll make those adjustments as we go. Just to kind of go through the overview here. As you can see, this was I just want to see if I can move you guys out. This was our first, I think when Nancy presented, this is like the overview of the budget. And that was in, I think it was February 25th, but as you can see, the 3.5%, and you can see the change there is approximately about $1 million, and that covers, as we said, and I gave the overview last time with the 1/12 budget of a lot of what the 3.5 along with our own appropriations add for us. So that's the choice fund balance that we can carry over, the circuit breaker through special education, our Swayze, and then the 700 there for kindergarten revolving, which then provides the overall with the 3.5, and then our own appropriations and reallocating funding within district for the total of the 4.8. So with this being said, it you know, this was our big goal, I think, for the community for a long time, and working with school committee throughout the summer and our principals, administrative team, Mr. Wolf and his high school. So this is the late start allocated funds. So going into this school year, late start is going to continue. And the funds that we have here, you have the 0.6 computer science teacher to support the late start, along with the 0.4 therapeutic program, flex classes stipend. So that's the continuation of the after school flex classes, as we brought some of those back into the operational school schedule. An increase of food service staff as we're going down to the 2 lunches. And then the configuration estimate of 16,000, taking a look at room 118 to reconfigure that, not only for lunch, but also for a learning space. That would be the cafeteria in that area would be utilized as a learning space throughout the day when the lunches are not being served. On top of that, the combo knock Mullen, the split of a physical education teacher, 0.5 at the knock, and then the 0.5 at the Mullen. So that teacher will split between both schools. And then the increase of the assistant principal to support, especially on arrival and dismissal and lunches and coverage, as you know, the school's going to be together throughout the day on the same schedule. So with the 3.5 and the allocations, this is fully supported going into this school year. So working with the extended leadership team in the original preliminary budget that Nancy presented on February 25th, we broke down our priority list. So as we're looking at, we did 3 categories. You have a shortfall still. We have a priority 1 and a priority 2 list. So that would be an increase of our ELL staff teacher, so an increase of a 0.3, and then an ELL IA to help facilitate communication with that L population would be an additional $25,000. And then the CAF reconfiguration, this would be the estimate of that we said earlier, but this would be an increase of not an additional 29,000, but up to 29,000. Is that correct?
So it's 13,000 increase,
Is
right?
that right? I know I have.
We increased it by 13,000, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you look down the bottom, that would be an increase of a 0.32%. So with we had the city appropriation 3.5, with the 0.32 would be overall of a 3.82%. Priority 1 for the district at the Bresnahan School, there's different areas that if funding does come in within the next, few months, we'd be looking at an additional 0.5 math intervention. And that's a lot of the discussions we've had with the regression that would assist at the Bresnahan. IA specialist, we're working with Deb O'Connor right now in the special ed team of looking at trying to develop a similar program, a therapeutic program at the Bresnahan, which would benefit not only the students and families, but also working with continuity throughout the district and also our special education costs. A special education teacher is part of that therapeutic program at the Bres, would all tie in. So we're looking at our special education cost centers, and this would be a priority 1 list. At the NOC school, 2 world language teachers, and that's the estimated cost of the 2 teachers. And then flush valves throughout the building, and that is really on the maintenance and the flush valve, similar to the Bresnahan. From my understanding, talking with Mr. Burkholm, the NOC Mullen, I guess those flush valves have been breaking a lot, so to replace all of those would be $6,500. The high school, there is no priority 1 for them. Because of them supporting the late start in the original 3.5. Priority 2 is an additional kindergarten teacher. The NOC Mullen schools, there is not a priority 2 list at this time. And then the high school priority 2 list is a increase in the music to a 0.2. A 0.4 computer science teacher, a 0.4 math teacher, and then a 1.0 adjustment counselor for the therapeutic program. But that's not essential at this time. That would be something for the therapeutic program as we build that program down the road, adding an adjustment counselor. So these are type of positions. If there was money available, especially at the high school on the priority 2, money available in August, September, or October, we could add these in as a putback. So if you look down the bottom on this slide, so you can see the priority 1 is an increase of a 0.84%. So you have shortfall plus priority 1. The city appropriation total would be 4.66. Priority 2 is the shortfall, priority 1 and priority 2, which brings us up to a 5.25%. And as we're understanding how funds and not really understanding, how funds are going to be impacted, I think throughout the state and throughout the Commonwealth, we're still looking at all of our cost centers and looking at the needs within our operational budget, and then seeing if we can develop programming or develop support in scheduling. So that's an ongoing effort of the extended leadership team and the administration throughout. As we go to the next slide, I think these are the areas, as the mayor said, for COVID-19 related filing and related refunds and filing for relief. So these are the accounts that, because we have not been in school and there's shortfalls here, these are the anticipated shortfalls for these balances here. So this is something that Nancy, myself, working with the city, the mayor, are going to be filing for hopefully some relief. But as you can see, transportation refunds around $40,000. Our kindergarten revolving refunds is 70,000. Our preschool, around 25,000. Athletic user fees, 73,000. Food service salaries, 129. And then supplies, 18. And then we're still working on our Chromebooks. Right now, we've issued throughout the district 265 Chromebooks to families. And that's always ongoing, and continue to work with families as they, develop with different problems in the home. So we're around $350,000 that we're anticipating, as we file for relief in the COVID, hopefully recover some of those balances. At this time, that's not having an impact on our budget, but as we prepare our budget for next year, those are those cost centers that we really need to take a look at, especially if we're not going to be getting much relief in those areas. But I know there's definitely, as part of the bills in the CARES Act, there'll be some recuperation in those areas, especially food service, Chromebooks, and possible supplies that we can tie back to the COVID-19. And then this was our ELL high school students. Mr. Wolf gave me a call, and they had an international lunch, and it was awesome, actually. I got to eat, I go right to Newburyport High School, and I got to eat across the world there. So we had a lot of fun that day too. So those are our priorities for this year's budget, and we kind of broke it down where if funding was made available, would be able to put in some putbacks and requests from the preliminary budget of February 25th.
Thank you, Sean. I wanted to give Nancy an opportunity if she wanted to add anything to the presentation.
Not really. Right now, we're just watching our revolving accounts to see what type of impact they're gonna have on this FY21 budget. Right now, because we carried a balance, I think we're gonna be okay. But if, everything's a question mark. If you don't open up in September, you're not gonna be bringing revenue in. So it's a wait and see, The bus company is currently working on the routes as they know them to be. And again, we know that that could change. So we're progressing as normal, or as normal as we can, and we'll adjust as we go along.
Thank you. School committee members, questions for the superintendent or for Nancy Lysick?
I have one. Superintendent, could you speak again to why we're upping the assistant principal at the Mullen to full-time? Due to late starts? I'm sorry, I just didn't understand
Yes.
exactly what you said.
Well, we're bringing all students together now, so it's not a staggered start. So when you have especially coverage of dismissal and arrival, along with coverage, during lunches. So we see that team as working together as a team, because now this is going to probably be, when we put all the numbers together, Mr. Reardon, it's going to be a large school similar to the high school, because everyone's going to be here all at once. So I think working with them as we were developing the plan of late start, that was the big question, because now we're bringing everyone here together. And so both Principal Rossi and Principal Furlong are going to be working together as an administrative group for coverage and making sure supervision and the organization of the school.
So again, just to make sure I understand myself, part of the challenge was that by aligning the schedule with Mullen and the NOC, by aligning their schedules perfectly, we created the need for some additional staff. One of those was a PE teacher. And the other is because there's going to be about 900 or so kids. We're 2 full administrative teams in the building, which represents the 0.5.
Correct. So there was, I think with the staggered times with Mullen and NOC, it was I think, more coordinated of, the two administrative teams, although they do collaborate, but not as much because you had the staggered times. But now that all the students are going to be arriving at the same time and all the students will be leaving at the same time, along with different coverages throughout, we felt that extra supervision, especially on the administrative side, was a need. Because if you look at the total school, if you have 800 to 900 students all here at once, you're going to need, a lot more support because it's not the staggered times.
Sean Reardon, did you have a follow-up question to that?
No, I mean, I guess that makes sense. I know, the Mullen fought for a long time, for that assistant principal position, and I was thrilled we were able to do that last year. And, we're a year removed from that, and now we're going to make that position full-time. So, I mean, like I said, I just wanted to hear again how it was necessary. So superintendent answered.
Great.
Thank you.
Additional questions for the superintendent, Nancy?
I have a couple of questions. I'm wondering if this budget reflects any costs that might be incurred if I'm pretty sure we will, go to online learning in the fall.
Yeah, and I think that's a great question. And as part of the CARES Act, and Assistant Superintendent Bick's going to talk about this, if we need to increase remote learning or areas that, even if it's nursing and coverage in the nurse's office, the CARES Act has funding that we can equate to that. So within that, I think it's around $250,000 as part of that CARES Act that Assistant Superintendent's gonna, Vic will talk about in a little bit, but we do have pre-planning for that.
Great.
Mhm.
And are we locked into buying Chromebooks, or are there other options? Is there a possibility to do a group purchase of another type of laptop that might be better?
Yeah, I think that was, especially at the high school level, we were piloting, before we had COVID, we had a 2-month pilot for students and staff, and they were looking at different, devices from Apple. And then also, they're already used to the Chromebooks at the high school, and we were getting feedback from the students and the staff. So we kind of put that on hold, but that's something I think down the road as we look at enhancing our technology plan, conversations. But right now, I think for all of us, because of the NEF, because of the support, Chromebooks have been, what we've been utilizing, especially pre-K to grade 8. The high school, it's kind of bring your own device, so it's been a little bit different for the grades 9 to 12.
Sean, you are going to be looking at renewing our technology plan. Obviously, if we ever return to normal, that's a priority for you over the next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think, for Assistant Superintendent Bick and Mr. Wolf and our principals, especially with the remote learning, that we've kind of got thrown into here, I think it just makes sense. And really working with the staff and parents, I think with the technology survey, of what's working and what isn't, that's something that I think we'll regroup over the summer, take a look at the existing technology plan that's been in place, and then see in what areas that we can enhance that.
I just had one last question for me. Did the I know that that you did a sort of a practice run at the high school. Did it go on long enough for people to begin to express opinions? You don't need to tell me what they are, but did you get some information? Was it around long enough for you to begin to get some information and feedback?
Yeah, we had a lot of positive feedback, I think, from the teachers. I just unmuted Mr. Wolf. He's never one lost for words, but he ended up working with the students and the teachers. I was actually invited to a couple classes, and I think there was a lot of positive feedback around trying out new devices and trying out different products. But I think it went on for 2 months, if I was correct, right, Andy?
Yep, 2 months.
Yeah.
And definitely a lot of good energy, especially around the iPad devices, with just how teachers were able to do things differently in the classroom for the students.
Great.
Because I don't want to get us distracted on the tech conversation if we're going to get more into that at another time. But one of the things I happen to love about what I'll call Chromebooks 2.0, which is something between like the initial stuff that schools were ordering and what's available now, and still extremely less expensive than a MacBook, is they come with, you can flip them and turn them into a touchscreen like an iPad. So you have whiteboard capacity and some of that functionality that I'm sure iPad users love, but you still get to type like a computer. I don't know. Again, I don't want to sidetrack this conversation, but I think that's something really interesting to talk about, is not really what kind of devices we like, but what sort of technology teachers are interested in and ready to use in the classroom.
Right.
And sorry, go ahead.
No, I agree with you 100%. And I think for us, as we all come back together, I think those are the discussions, and it's not necessarily the device. It's more about, I think, the instructional technology that's happening in the classroom. And then, as you said, school committee Hawkeyes, are the comfort level of the people that are utilizing the different types of technology. So,
Sheila, did you have a follow-up question?
No, I didn't. I actually used a Chromebook and I have a high-speed connection at home, and the Chromebook was so much slower. My Zoom conference call was all broken up, and I signed off and I got onto a Mac Air and it was smooth and great. So for me, I'm not a fan of Chromebooks. I know this.
Good timing.
Everybody loves the Maserati, I promise.
Well, that's why I was asking if there's a group plan, and maybe there's plans out there.
Again, we don't want to go off on a tangent here, but Sean, whatever happened to the one-to-one program we started to get into and go to Beverly for? Regardless of the device, it was people purchased the item instead of the school coming up with the money.
so maybe Mr. Wolf can, you could explain that whole process, because there was a lot of professional development that went along with that, correct?
Yeah, so we had 7 teachers who were part of the pilot at the high school, who were trained on how to use the iPads. They were already using Chromebooks in the classroom. And so then we also had, we were able to survey the students just in terms of the differences of the devices. And so then unfortunately, the pilot ended at the end of February. And so we haven't really done anything with it now. And especially just where things with the budget are, it just hasn't, it's not a focus, or it just hasn't been a topic of discussion.
Well, but the one-to-one wouldn't impact the budget at all, because it was supposed to be the parents would be paying for the device.
Well, depending on whichever model I think the school committee elects to go with, because there's different models and approaches that districts have.
Right. So we just started off.
Please don't bring that to us like the day we're supposed to vote on it.
No, I'll do it after. I'll do it after you guys, after we voted. I'll tell you what you voted on. No. So
wait till Callahan dumps a bunch of money into it, then bring it up for a vote.
Right.
Yeah, right.
So I think the whole process of that is we explored a couple different platforms out there. We wanted our teachers and students to utilize a different device. And then unfortunately, when we were all going to regroup, it was in February, and then we've been dealing with COVID ever since. So we kind of just put that off to the side. And as we regroup going into next year, the special education for this year has been a major focus. But I think next year we'll take a real hard look at technology and see where we want to go as a district.
Sean, the idea of one-to-one would come out of a technology plan. It's not off the table, I'm assuming, right?
No.
Yeah, no, it's just
still a lot of different discussions, we have to have and go from there. So.
great. Additional
Could
questions?
Yeah, Nancy, real quick, are we collecting bus money from families right now?
Yes, we are.
We are.
Mhm.
I remember seeing something about it being delayed. Is that not true?
No, we've had that question come up a couple of times about delaying it. But there's really no way that we can, because if you have 500 people that pay and then there's 50 that don't pay, you've got to go back and keep on trying to collect from those 50 that didn't pay or held off. So we're having everybody pay up front, just like we normally would, with the assumption that we're going back to school in September. And if something comes up and we're not going back, then we'll make adjustments like we did this year
Okay.
with
And Sean, a couple questions for you, if I could.
Sure.
You're talking about a math interventionist, and you said that to help with the loss of learning coming back into school the next year. Could you talk a little bit about the type of intervention? Is this someone going to be supporting teachers or working with students?
I think, I think Angela is going to talk about this during her assistant superintendent report, but I think it's working with teachers, and then also providing, I think, support for students too. So it's like for us, I think it's working at the BRES and dealing with some of the, enhancement for math that we're looking to do. But since of, with the COVID and the regression, I think it would be a good thing. And the other piece too is this is another position that we can add if there is money that comes in, later, so if it's September or October. But I think Assistant Superintendent Bick's can address that when
Okay.
she does her report.
I guess that was my next question, is that in laying out possible additions to the budget, everything seemed to be labor related. So are there things that the school district is looking for, or the school district is interested in, that if money were to come up and we're past what we would consider a healthy hiring date, that we could make use of? We had talked about like those non-labor costs, like technology buys, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think on this list, there is definitely, are you talking, Dave, on the, like, if money, like, if you're looking for, I'm just going through if we're looking for foreign language, for example, obviously, if that money or funding was available, we'd love to have it by, August, because, we're developing the schedules. I know we're looking at trying to do a mock schedule with the language teachers in it, just in case. But some of those items, we would like to have for scheduling. But if you're looking at, for example, the adjustment counselor at the high school, if funding was available in November, then that's a position that we could add as support of not only the students, but really into that therapeutic program. So there are different items here, that we could add in after September. And other ones would be easier if we knew ahead of time, like in August, if we're talking about adding an additional, world language teachers.
Two more questions. The kindergarten teacher, is that because we're anticipating an increase in school population, or because we have a high number now?
It's not, if it was a high number now, we have that there for the same reason. I think to keep it on the radar, and it's numbers we're looking at. But right now, I think we're comfortable with the numbers that we have and the staffing that we have.
Okay.
I don't know if you recall, our first year, we added a kindergarten teacher. I think it might have been in August, because those numbers climbed up on us. So.
Right. I think we've added more than one kindergarten teacher recently, but I could be mistaken. And then could we talk about the world language teachers again? And I guess my big question is, how does how is adding more world language teachers, which I assume are going to be Spanish teachers? Or I guess
Yeah.
that would be part of the question is, are they Spanish teachers? And how is that going to help students?
Well, I mean, I was looking to see if Principal Furlong's here. I don't want to speak off. I think they have a plan. And I know Mr. Wolf, I know you've been talking to Principal Furlong about the continuity from middle school to high school, so I'm not sure if
And
you
I
want to
can
jump
help with
in.
that too, Sean. I've been part of that conversation. as
Okay, or if we wanted to wait till the next one, but if you guys want to maybe address some of that.
Sure. Angela, do you want to start or?
Sure, I can start. We just had a meeting about this, and we were discussing what makes the most sense at the middle school. And as we talked about it, taking everything into consideration, if we could put world language teachers on team at 7th and 8th grade, it will really make a much more robust world language program. To do that, we would need to go with a single language. And we weighed, the benefits of having choice in the language. And in the end, as we started to look at the benefits around having a world language teacher on team, those benefits outweighed having the choice of the language, because the research does show us that learning one language, if you learn one language well, transferring those skills into another language is better than learning any language lightly.
So are the kids actually going to get more language instruction?
They would, yes. And they would,
putting-
the teacher would be right on the team. It would be a member of the team, of the
Right.
teaching team. And it would be, they would work on a little bit of a waterfall schedule, because
so-
it would be regular rotation in the week.
Forgive me, because I know you keep saying they're going to be on the team. I'm trying to understand. Years ago, the point of increasing the number of foreign language teachers at the middle school was so that they could essentially qualify for Spanish 1 at the end of 8th grade.
Mm-hmm,
And from what I believe, we've done that.
mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to figure out what other benefits are we going to get from adding 2 more teams. We're now going to double the size of the faculty without giving the choice. So I'm trying to figure out what other benefits are we looking for aside from students testing out of Spanish 1.
Well, I think you have to remember, David, that what our Spanish 1 was not at a level of rigor that we hoped for, because we had had such reductions in our world language program that, what we had to view as Spanish 1 was something that would have been taught at middle school, 10 years ago here in the district, or 15 years ago in the district. So what it allow us to do is have the type of world language program that we are trying to recover here in the district. So the more that we can offer earlier, the more we can offer at the high school level. So we can take world language to a higher level by doing that. And part of the work that we've been doing with Dr. Scherf, who you met last year, has been that, really aligning our curriculum, looking at the practices within world language and what we need to do to really have a first-class world language program in the district. We were forced to compromise our world language instruction for a lot of years. So this really allows us to build it back to resemble more of what a world language program should look like.
All right. Forgive me again, and I'll just move on because I don't know where else to go with this, but that is absolutely the first time that I believe I've ever heard anybody refer to the world language courses we were offering at the high school as anything other than what they ought to be. And I was under the impression for all these years that the reduction in our programming in world language was a function of the amount of language we offered at the middle school. And under no circumstances, whether it was before this, during the presentation last fall, or in whatever conversations we were privy to this spring, I think I heard at least that we were offering subpar language courses. I heard we weren't offering enough of them, that we weren't offering it early, that we weren't offering it with the same level of continuity, but I had thought we took care of all of that, and that the plan was to now offer advanced language up at the high school.
Well, that
So now-
would be the plan. I mean, that
Right,
would,
but
you know,
right,
but
but now I'm hearing that we're going to have twice as many language teachers at the middle school, and really we're going to be in the same spot with the curriculum.
no, that wasn't what I was trying to say. So I'm glad you asked for clarification around that, because
When I say curriculum, I mean like students are still going to be able to take the same amount of Spanish courses.
actually
We would be able to expand it, David.
We'd be able to expand them because they'd enter the high school at a different place than they are now.
They're already doing that.
They're entering the high school with Spanish 1 under their belt right now.
Right.
But they could go further than that, David. You know, and think about this. You know, nobody wants to talk about our world language program as subpar at our high school, because everybody was doing the very best they possibly could given our circumstances. But our circumstances, the reality of our circumstances were that many of our students were coming to high school with no world language at all. And so what our entry classes looked like at high school had to accommodate where the children were that were walking in the door. And that's
So
not where you would want a world language program to be starting at your high school.
Are
So-
you saying that the students who came in this year after having finished 2 years of language at the middle school, and potentially next year, if we can't bring these other teachers in, or even 2 years by the time we bring this all up to speed, that they're going to struggle to get into the language instruction that we're hoping for?
I don't think that I'm saying that. I'm saying that we won't be able to, there won't be as many. I'm going to say that just from the changes we've made at the middle school thus far, Andy, we were just discussing this the other day, the increase in numbers that we have into higher level classes for next year, we're seeing an increase already. But we want that to be available for every child. You know, we'd like to see as many children who are interested in world language be able to take more advanced classes and have that available to them. And, you know, we're just laying out a curriculum that will spiral, that will allow them to do that.
Can I ask you a huge favor? The next time we come up to talk to about this, can we have things like some sort of maybe what's the word I'm looking for? A schedule proposal that shows exactly the amount of increased time the kids are going to have by hiring 2 more teachers, and or the enhancement to the curriculum that we're talking about that's going to have them better prepared for the new Spanish, either the new Spanish 1 at the high school or Spanish 2 at the high school?
Sure.
Because
I
right now
know
we're just
different-
talking about like vagaries and sort of, so I don't have anything tangible to lock in on, where it sounds like you do. So I would really love to look at that.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. It's a shame that Principal Furlong left, because she's been working on a model that shows kind of a 3-year plan for that. So we can get that for you.
Yeah, I was going to say, Angela, is that something, is that far enough along that the middle school is comfortable sort of writing it down, putting together a draft sort of paper on it and circulating it?
Yeah, Lisa has a draft that she sent to me right before this meeting. So
Okay.
I'd like to have a chance to go over that with her and talk it through a little bit. But I think that, you know, as long as you realize it's a draft and it's in early stages, you know, but I think we could definitely give you something in writing that shows
Great.
a draft of the thinking.
I think that would be helpful.
Sure.
Other questions for the superintendent and for Nancy?
Hello. What's the requirement for foreign language in middle school? Is there one?
No,
So kids don't,
think
6,
part of
7, 8 kids don't have to take it, right?
they do not.
They don't. And that's a statewide thing, like a city can't require it?
Yeah, I'm talking about state requirements.
Right, but can a
It's a
district,
high school requirement for world language, but not for middle school.
but can a district require it or not?
It
Sure.
can,
Yeah.
yeah, it can be part of your programming. So I think the idea, and I think what David's talking to, and I'm not sure, Andy, if you want to jump in, I think the vision and the idea is if you have, foreign language or Spanish in grade 7, and then Spanish again in grade 8, that you would come into the high school and maybe, depending on your level, at like an honors 2. So you would start your freshman year at an honors 2, or college, college prep 2, depending on some sort of an assessment. I think the benefit of developing a comprehensive middle school program, and we had this in the district where I was a principal at, is students by their junior year, some of them with the language were, level 5 as a junior. So colleges see if you're Spanish 5, that you have 5 years equivalent, that you maxed out your junior year. And then the benefit for high school students is if then that frees up if they're an advanced student to take more courses their senior year. So I think the vision is, and maybe I'm wrong, Mr. Wolf, but I think the vision is have a comprehensive middle school language program. So when students come into the high school, they can come in at more of an advanced level.
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal. This year was the first year we were able to test every single student in the 8th grade to really make sure they were sufficiently placed. And we even have a few students that are jumping in to level 3, just because of not so much because of the district, but other opportunities they've had. But the goal is that we have more students that might be able to jump into that more intermediate level. And even getting to a point that we might be able to kind of think differently about how we code the courses from just like you would do with an English language learner program, from beginning to intermediate to advanced, really with the ultimate goal that we can offer those more advanced level languages, because we would need them, because we would have so many students that, because they were enjoying language because of the new way that teachers are now teaching it. So really trying to teach more for communication versus getting down to the nitty gritty of grammar and all of that. And so there's more desire to continue to pursue dual language. And then I think the seal of biliteracy will also help with that as well, once we're able to get to that level of, for students who are interested in applying for the seal, to be able to have that opportunity.
When we say we're doing 2, what are the languages that will be offered from the 2 instructors?
From my understanding, for the middle school, they would, so that they could really have a comprehensive program, they would still focus on Spanish. So Lisa's idea is that by having the 2 world language teachers, she would now have a language teacher on each of the teams, so that in 7th and 8th grade, there would be more, it would almost be kind of like one of the cores that students are already taking right now with, so they take their math, their science, it would be part of their academic rotation versus happening during, I forget what the name of the period that she calls it, but it would be a more
It's an
substantive
Explore.
program.
Right.
It's an Explore program.
Yeah.
I guess
Right.
that's
Thank
the
you.
question, because I know we added German for 8th grade. Disclaimer, my son took it. And I asked about the requirements because there were fewer than 10 kids taking that class, I think. It was like 8. So if it were a requirement or had better marketing, then you'd have more kids taking it. But if we're going to do that with Spanish and not require them to take it and still have the other staffer on, I guess.
No,
Yeah.
I think it would be part of the team, so it would be required. The rotation of Spanish would be required as part of the team. But I know Lisa can speak to that more detail, but that's, going back to my previous experience, that's how we built a comprehensive language program. We started with one language at the middle school, and then we, after we did pretty well with that. We brought in another language at the middle school. And then we brought it down to 6th grade. So this took a few years, but eventually the language program was very successful at the middle school, that students were coming in there freshmen. Some students are coming in as freshmen at an honors 3. So they would be taking honors 3 Spanish or honors 3 German. And then by their sophomore year, they were equivalent to 4 years, which was pretty good. And then we, but I think that this is the start of building back the program. And I know Assistant Superintendent Beck and Mr. Wolf and Principal Furlong have been working with the consultant too to start this process.
We use, the same model back when we had a full comprehensive district-wide world language program. The way that worked then, some of you were here, some of you were not. We offered only one language at the elementary school. All of our students at the elementary level took Spanish. When they came to the middle school in 6th grade, it was exploratory. And then they chose a language by 7th grade. So they had a choice. And at that time, we were lucky enough to offer 3 languages at the middle school. And so they could choose one of the 3 languages. They started that path in grade 7. And then, of course, they took more advanced classes as they were able to go through the high school. That was what we used to have for world language before we were forced to take it apart. And, that was budget. That was purely, a terrible budget time that Donna's spoken to many times that we've faced. So, it's a model that I think has been used in the district with a lot of success, with a single language at your entry point of language, so that you learn the fundamentals of learning a language. And
So are we going to get rid of German for 8th grade next year then? Or are they still going to have it?
That's the right now we're in between 2 places because we don't have the additional teachers yet. So we have a model put together that would be very similar to what it was this year. And then we have another model that would be if we were able to add the additional teachers and actually make world language a regular core subject on team.
But still just for Spanish for 7th and 8th grade.
If we brought in the extra teachers, we would go with a single language. I'm not sure, Brian, about if we stick with the model we have this year, if we would still be offering German. I think that's still in discussion.
What are the what's offered in high school? What choices?
At the high school?
Yeah.
We would still have German and Spanish
Just those 2 are offered currently?
for right now, yeah.
I'm only bringing these questions up because I got to be honest, I'm kind of surprised. Because Sean, what we had talked about was something you very much like what you described. We build the program in one language, we bring in a second language, and then we start to move down into lower grades. And so I'm just trying to figure out how doubling the amount of teachers improves the instruction. And so, Ms. Pick is saying that we have to improve the instruction because we have to increase the rigor in those classes. That's why I was asking for the particulars. As far as what we did this year with German, I have to say publicly, I think it was a huge mistake. I'm not sure why we did that. It came off like an afterthought because there were under 10 kids in it. It sounds like it went off as an afterthought. And I'm just trying to get in advance because ultimately we're going to vote on another budget that starts in September. Because we just did the 3 months. So at some point we're gonna have this discussion, and it might maybe behoove us to try to have this language discussion on an agenda before those budget talks, so that you guys are ready if it gets approved and if we come up with money to get going on that.
Yeah, I mean, my recommendation is for our next school committee, I could have Principal Wolf and Principal Furlong kind of map out the discussions along with Assistant Superintendent Beck on what we're looking to do if we did get additional language teachers at the middle school.
Okay.
Any additional questions? I just for my own clarification here, Sean, if you go to the page that says the FY21 priority list, the mayor has really encouraged us to build a budget, which we've done with the 3.5% as the starting point. And if we can add another 1.75% of city appropriation, we will be able to get everything on this page.
Are you talking 5.25%?
Yes, to get to 5.25.
Yep.
This is what 5.25 gets us in addition to what we're adding with the 3.5.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And I just would like to add that that clearly is our goal, is this was a starting point, given all the unknowns we have, and that, you know, if in fact relief comes down, I mean, we certainly aren't going to see these Student Opportunities Act be implemented this year. And I'm not sure that we were going to get a significant amount of money from that massive increase in Chapter 70 funding. But that's our goal, is to, you know, hit that 5.25, if not higher. You know, so I'm hoping, but at this point, I'm very encouraged, you know, by what the superintendent has put together, which, you know, again, I think, as you said during the education subcommittee, Bruce, this is the first time, I think, since you know, in many superintendents that we have seen a superintendent who's been able to drill down into the budget and just not sit where we are and say, okay, this is what we need to add, but to really drill down and look, you know, in depth at the budget, where our programs are, looking at special ed, trying to working with Principal Wolf, bring programs back into the district, which reduces our special ed costs. So I am very, very, very pleased with what has been covered in this 3.5 budget, and that, you know, with just, you know, even adding the 0.32 to get to the shortfall, I'm anticipating that that is something that we should be able to do. And, you know, moving through priority 1 and priority 2, it's nice to have these, this plan. And, you know, hopefully, as we move through the summer months and there's more clarity on what's happening with relief packages, we can get there. But at this point, I'm, you know, very, very pleased with where we are with the school budget, and, you know, being able to cover as many things as we need to in terms of being sure that we're able to provide, you know, even more than just level services. It's clear that our superintendent has been able to go beyond level services with this 3.5 budget. And I am very grateful to the superintendent and Nancy Lysick, to all the principals and the leadership team who have worked really hard on this budget in this difficult time. So thank you.
Yeah, I suspect there are not a lot of school committees that are talking about opportunities to expand some programming or make a shift as significant as Late Start. So you always want more, but I think we've accomplished a great deal here, and we know what our priorities are. Terrific. Thank you. We will close this section. I'm going to open up the next item on the agenda for Dave Hockheiser to introduce a discussion of draft school committee goals.
Hi, I'm gonna keep my video off because it seems my Wi-Fi it struggles whenever I try to run the video. So we had met and we've been talking about goals for a few months now. Do you guys all have the cover page that the document that I sent out, or should I share it?
Please share it.
Yeah, you can share it. Make sure you can.
Okay.
There you go. See if you can share now.
Yeah, I got you.
Perfect.
There we go. So as of tonight, we have 4 goals that we'd like to talk about. And I think by process, we usually do a first read of these and then vote on them the next time. I will tell you really briefly, we have some things that we are waiting for some advice from legal counsel on, such as fundraising policy. Did not at all feel like we had enough information to start moving forward, either from Nancy or Kyle, or there were some issues that Sean was working on getting answers from legal from. We'd also been talking about ownership of computer files, talking about who actually owns files that are written for the school and on school equipment, and how do we work out as a procedure the transfer of files from personal accounts to professional accounts. We talked about fingerprinting because that came up, and we were going to also run that by legal. And then we were also going to talk about the idea of special meetings, which is something that's that comes up in our policy book, but is still a little unclear. There was a policy proposal for something to do with food services, but since we're not in school, that's not relevant at this point. And then there was another matter that Superintendent Gallagher said that he could work out with the principals, and that wouldn't be an issue. So we're not going to push that forward as a goal to discuss. So we have 4 things to discuss tonight up top, and we'll see what everybody's patience level looks like. And so, like I said, tonight we'll look at these as a first read, and then maybe we can talk about them having a vote at the next meeting if things go well. The first one is process for superintendent evaluation. We have always done an exceptional job with the end result of our evaluation. The state has recognized us for that and used our model in certain cases to share with other districts. This goal really speaks to the Superintendent Evaluation Committee and how, I guess we were hoping that that committee could work with the superintendent throughout the year to do a better job of, or to actually do a job at all, because it's not something we're doing, but to start tracking things that the superintendent is doing in real time and how they attach to the state's evaluation rubric for superintendents. And that we could have sometime in the early spring. It says here February 1st, but this is really, the action steps are more advisory than anything, but that we could start talking about how the year is going. And so that we, we think it's fair to the superintendent to know that if we think there's something that's not happening, that something he could focus on or the superintendent could focus on. And that way, when we got to the end of the year, we wouldn't have to be searching for evidence. It would all pretty much be laid out and we could talk about how the year went, not kind of drilled down by paperwork at that point. I think it'd be best if we took these one by one. So if anybody has anything they'd like to think about or add or comment on or critique.
Anybody have any comments for Dave on the first one?
Well, I could add that I agree with you, Dave. I think that our school committee, the final report is, I think, takes a lot of work and research on all of our parts to look at the evidence. And I agree with you. I think that's kind of what we had hoped would happen. But, there's been just, different factors that come into the process, especially this year. But I agree with you. And I think that we're very fortunate that our superintendent does his Friday reports, which give us, at least a basis of information for moving forward with the evaluation process. But I think that we do have an obligation to all the school committee members to have an organized you know, whether it be a Google Doc or something that we're sharing, that information that the superintendent does present to us can go in, and we can even organize it by the goals that we're, you know, expecting him to work on during the course of the year. So thank you. I appreciate the action steps and the fact that you're trying to tighten up this evaluation process for the benefit, I think, of the superintendent as well as the work of the school committee members. So thank you to you and your policy group.
Sure, and Superintendent Gallagher did say that he'd be willing to work with us and add things to it. You know, I don't want to make this any more onerous to him. So, you know, one of the things is maybe to brainstorm a process where he could start tagging things in his memos.
Right.
He could just put on the bottom, like, evaluation rubric 1 or something like that. So we could then go back and forth and do the organizing for him.
Sounds great.
Yep.
Dave, I'm going to give the same feedback that I've been giving pretty consistently. And that is that I think the goal statements, for the most part, are pretty good. I am concerned about action steps that are very prescriptive, that are top-down action steps that don't really reflect a lot of collaborative conversation with school committee, other subcommittees, and some district people who are going to be obligated to doing some things. And that's the problem that I have with the action steps for each of these. That we're sort of saying from the top down, these are the steps we're going to do. Maybe they're advisory, so if you want to change the language to advisory, well, if you're going to keep the language action steps, then you're laying out how you want it done. And you know, the only other thing that I would say about the superintendent evaluation is that within the evaluation process, I would hope we would also be looking at the work the superintendent is not only doing on their goals, but also on the district goals and also on the strategic plan goals, which I'm not sure how that gets. I don't really see that idea reflected anywhere in this. So those are my feelings about this one.
Regular scheduled meetings, the superintendent evaluation committee. So is there something in here that you find particularly prescriptive that?
Presented at or before the second meeting of every September sounds pretty prescriptive to me.
Well, right, but I would hope that we have a meeting at the beginning of the year. So I guess maybe I'm okay with that, because I really hope we have a meeting at the beginning of every year that talks to superintendent's goals.
I'm not saying that we shouldn't. I'm saying if you're writing down a specific time and date to have it, that feels very prescriptive to me. Okay. Why can't we have it in August, at our meeting in August?
It just says by. At or before, so we can. Sean, I'm sorry, thought I heard you.
No, I was just gonna say, I like that we have a buy there, because I mean, I think it holds us accountable.
And like down here, Bruce, where it says to ensure all available evidence is considered and the best evidence is collected for the school committee's consideration. So whatever work the superintendent is doing, whether it's for his or her goals, the district goals, the strategic planning, I don't know, the senior committee's goals, whoever he's working with, it's all considered. If there's other language that, we think we should include, I'm more than happy to consider that.
I like that it's broad there, because you're right, David. It does include, all evidence.
I would, I don't, even as an action step, throughout the spring seems to me to be superfluous. The expectation is that the superintendent's going to set up a system that is a year-round system, right?
Okay,
Again, I'm just going to express that I am uncomfortable with action steps attached to broad goals. I'm not uncomfortable with conversation about action steps. I'm not uncomfortable with collaboration about action steps, but I just am not used to seeing such specific actions attached to goals.
you know, part of my thinking, as a bit of self-reflection, is that we haven't had goals on this school committee for quite a few years now. And the last time we had goals, I don't remember exactly the year it was, but what we came to realize was that we were trying to use the district's goals as our goals, and they didn't actually have anything that we could do. There was nothing actionable in those goals. We didn't define what our role would be. So, you know, what we tried to do is to come up with some things that, what exactly is the school committee? Because we do a school committee self-evaluation too at the end of the year. And the reality is that, you know, the hope of the action steps is there are some things that, okay, did we actually do these things? Did we do something as a school committee, not as the school committee that works with the district who's doing a lot of work, but as the school committee, did we do what we set out to do? Anybody else have a comment on the first goal? Okay. Again, we'll take these up for vote at the next meeting. So if you guys want to look through them again, you guys all have the links to it. You can get back to me. We can do a vote. What would that be? June 1st, you said?
June 1st.
June 1st. The budget goal, the school committee will upgrade our communication deliberation process in order to help us endorse a yearly superintendent's budget. You know, for these, we took a lot of the action steps from things that have been asked of us this year and last year, really. And I think these are things that have served us really well, like fully disclosing a projection and explanation of what level services look like, which is something we talked about at the meeting with the city council in the fall. So it's because it's important for people to know if we're looking at a huge budget increase, 3.54%, whatever, if level services cost us a lot of that, you know, I think the people who showed up to our first budget meeting this spring were better informed when they left by knowing that the reason we're not looking at some items that they considered aspirational is because we wanted to first make sure that none of our services are cut, none of our teachers are cut, none of our programs are cut, that we wanted to make sure that we could open strong again, and then we could look forward to adding things. We want to ensure public airing consideration of priorities brought forward by all stakeholders. So this is essentially the, what do you call it, the budget forum that we have every year. We want to make sure that that happens because I know it's happened in a number of different ways in the past. Well, I want to make sure that we're doing that. The context of the budget is something that the city council asked for this year and something we've all talked about this year. So if we have like a new program, what's the new program look like? Why are we adding a new program? What does it look like multiple years? So that we can better understand it. Talk about some things that were not funded. So if we had some budget items that people, you know, that just didn't get funded, well, what's that going to look like this year without it? And that we start the budget process early enough. And this timeline essentially came off of this year's map, which I know got thwarted by the shutdown, but We're talking about 4 meetings prior to the budget being due to city council, so that we could have an initial presentation, a public forum, an intermediary meeting, and then a final presentation and vote. Because there have been years when we haven't had 4 meetings and it felt very rushed. So Bruce, again, I know you're thinking that this is very prescriptive, and I guess I'll say that I think it's purposefully prescriptive and healthily.
I don't want to put them on the spot, but I would ask Nancy and Sean if they have any thoughts about this particular school committee goal and the impact it will have on the work they're doing. Will it require them to do more work during the budget process to get this stuff together?
Nancy, are you there? Let me just say.
Yep, I'm here.
Nancy, your input on Bruce's question, and then I can follow up too after that.
Any information needed in budget process does create a little bit more work. I'm not saying it, whatever you requested or needed, we couldn't do, we can. I just need a timeline defined early enough so that we can meet it.
Right, and I think the guidelines that we developed, so Nancy, we start our deliberations, our school councils, as part of the monthly meetings that they have. They start their budget process with the school councils in October, then in November. And then we kind of, I think, receive information from the city. Like this year, we received information from the city, I think, in November. And then we start working individually with the principals. And so our first preliminary draft is usually at the end of January, early February, correct, Nance?
Right, we start discussing it in December, but that's usually just you and I discussing strategies and
Yeah.
what meetings we're gonna need to set up and.
With the principals. And then we go
Exactly.
from there. Yeah. Yeah, so I think if we went back to, I think last year, for the school committee members, I thought last year we were in a pretty good place with the budget updates. We weren't dealing with COVID last year, but I think if we go back to the school committee, I think we had a few updates, probably more updates around the budget than we've had this year because of the COVID. But so is that what you're looking for from January until the budget forum, which is usually in April, a few budget meetings on the school committee agenda?
Well, I guess I was trying to plan backwards, right? And Ms. Mayor, the budget's usually due to the city council in May.
It has to be delivered by May 15th.
Right, so that means that no later than the first meeting in May, can we have this one here, the final presentation and vote?
Right.
Or the last meeting in April.
Or
we've done
the last
before.
meeting in April
Yeah,
even, right?
To give us
So-
time to prepare the budget document, yes.
And so I was just thinking general practice, I think general good practice is that we get an initial presentation, a public forum. And sometimes we've had 2 public forums. Like there was one year we had kind of like an aspirational forum in December where people came and then we talked about, well, what would you want out of a budget this year? But at least one public forum. And then a meeting that says, hey, listen, we heard from you guys, we thought about this, we thought about that. And here's something we're kind of toying with before the final presentation. So I was just trying to work backwards because there is no actual date on this, like January, February. It's just 4 meetings before it's due to the city council. At bare minimum, I think we need to start looking into budget presentations at every meeting.
And
So
I don't
do you
think.
want?
Sorry,
oh,
go ahead.
sorry.
No,
Do you
go.
want budget updates at each meeting? Do you want details of where we are at that point in time?
I think Nancy, this is something you guys did for us this year.
Yeah,
Like you came this year when Sean was out with his knee surgery and gave us this one, the presentation on news funding and printing on programs and stuff like that.
yep,
Last year, we had a couple different meetings where the principals came and did a presentation, which we did not do this year. But
Yep.
however that looks. And then we didn't have an official public forum, but we had a meeting where a lot of people came and talked about the budget,
mm-hmm,
right? And then
Yep.
we had sort of, a meeting after that where you guys said, okay, well, we're taking things and we're playing it around, and then we voted on it.
so I think we just need to modify our guidelines and make sure that we have solid dates for when each one of these items are going to take place. That's something that would probably need to be done every year,
Right.
depending on when we actually start and kick it off. We could set the dates then.
Right. And then if we wanted to have principal presentations, we would have to, add that in somewhere. But-
Yeah, we can put that right in there, yeah.
But this would all
But it's
start
not,
with,
it's not going to take us any more time to do something,
No.
well, a little bit more time, for the meeting, but it's not like we'd be with gathering any additional data, so
no,
I don't see a
again,
problem with it.
and some of this is, was policy's recognition that this
Mhm.
hasn't always gone well every year, even though we've intended it to. So if we codify these things, maybe we could just be, better boys and girls about keeping to a calendar. And this would all start with the backwards plan. If the mayor lets us know, budget's has to be to city council by this date, we can then start counting back a couple meetings.
It's
Yeah,
always, it's by state law, Dave, the 15th.
Okay.
It was
Right.
obviously
Yeah.
lifted this year because of where we are, but it's a state law that it must be submitted to the city council by the 15th. So that gives them 45 days to the end of the fiscal year to approve the budget. So that's a given. So you can actually
So,
put
right.
that in.
So then it's something that maybe at our summer retreat, when we're building a calendar, we could say, this is this meeting, this is that, based on budget,
Yeah,
so we can move forward.
if you're not looking for any, new presentations or special efforts on presentation, then the time is going to be, the extra time will be minimal. It would be more of, okay, similar to this year that Sean and I did is, this is where we are right now. This is the progress we've made and how we got where we've gotten.
No, I mean, personally, if I had my druthers, I'd think anything to a deeper level of detail,
Mhm.
maybe starts going through finance meetings instead of committee of the whole.
Okay,
I think the committee of the whole budget meetings we've had have been, very well informed the past couple of years. And if people wanted more detailed information on certain things, either they come up like we have with the, sorry, the wording's escaping me, but with the stuff around the schools and the spending for the buildings and stuff like that. We spent a lot of time on some of that detail, or that could be brought up through the finance committee.
I think the finance committee is a good place to start with it.
Yeah.
One of
David,
the,
can you do me a favor and scroll back up to the goal?
Yeah.
Thank you.
one of the things that's sort of been
I don't like the goal.
my pet peeve, I guess, or something that I've always fought for is the statutory responsibility that school councils have with the principal to create the budget, which they do in October. And I think we're increasingly getting better at how to do that. And I wonder if even on a site-by-site basis, we couldn't encourage the school councils to hold a community forum before the principals, and a community forum for their site, since each budget is developed at the site and then comes together with the leadership team to get pieced together to really do something. I don't know if it's policy or just direct. I have no idea how to do it, but I would really like to see the school councils getting more grassroots feedback from their community before the budget gets brought forward in November or December. and we've been pretty lax, I think, historically around school counselors. We're getting a lot better after we got our wrists slapped by the state. But I would really love to see more conversation at the schools earlier in the year to inform the budget that's being brought forward.
I agree with you, Bruce, and I think that I can remember one year after our wrists got slapped that we actually had the principals come in with members of the school councils and talk to us about their plans and about what they see as priorities. It doesn't have to be really drilled down into, great detail, but at least it gives us, as we go forward in the budget, these are our priorities going forward in terms of adding to the budget. I agree with you. I think that that's a really helpful forum in terms of helping us, get a sense of what the school council, which includes students and parents and faculty and administration, on how we go forward with the school budget. So I think that's a really good addition to this timeline.
Yeah,
I guess for me, David, in terms of looking at this, I actually do not like the goal. I think that we just should not upgrade our communication. The school committee requires X, whatever it is, the process is, as opposed to that we will upgrade our communication. Let's make a policy that says what the school committee desires out of the budget process, as opposed to, because this will stand for, a period of time, that we will upgrade our communication deliberative process. So why not write a goal that says the school committee will be provided with whatever in order to, the following to review, and I don't know. I just think it should be more directive, as opposed to, I think I'm not thrilled with the goal. I think some of your action steps are a little too prescriptive. But I get where you're going, and you're trying to outline a process that can be uniform, because, having been chair of budget and finance on the council, and now for 11 years as mayor, I can tell you that just about every year in the school budget process, there's been changes where there has been a lot more uniformity until this year on the part of the city council. And I think we need to create a uniform process in terms of how the budget is presented and reviewed. So do you mind if I sort of play wordsmith this a little bit and get back to you?
Absolutely not. You can have at it.
Okay. But thank you. I know I appreciate the effort, because I understand what you're trying to do. I think at one point, a former school committee member had put together a really good calendar of how, in terms of process, as we go forward in terms of reviewing the budget. But I certainly think that we are getting the information. It's just nice to be able to put this together in a format that makes sense. But I don't know that we want to start actually with action step, like talk about what level services. I'm not sure that that's I understand that, and that's been, a discussion, and a lot of people have said that, but I don't think people understand what level services. And this year at 2.5, we're not at level services. Sean has done an incredible job. So is that really the first action step we want there?
Well, if I may chime in, I think it is super important. And the reason people don't know is because they're not told what that really means. And it comes up every year. And I've been hearing about it since way before I was on school committee from people around town. And I think it's up to us and the mayor and Sean to explain exactly what level services actually means. Because if it's every year starts at 3.5 as hey, this is what we're going to start with, how can it ever be much more than keeping things level if it's always the same?
Because
we're
adding, Brian, we're adding 3.5% to the existing budget.
I understand that, but it is not presented well to the public, because that's why they have the same question every single year.
We've never, I think, and Steve, check me on this, you'd probably have to go back to Kevin Lyons to find a time we were ever actually presented with a level services budget. Where the conversation about level services budget comes in is that if we know, for example, that we've got 3.5 or 2.5% raises to give in a given year, then if we get 3.5%, we have less to work with, at least to start, before we add other stuff. But and people will refer to that as, well, that's practically a level services budget, but it isn't. And it particularly isn't with this particular superintendent, because again, each year, 2 years in a row, he's had 2 budgets, 2 years in a row, he's gone back in and found efficiencies and been able to reallocate. So in fact, it isn't a level services budget. We have not been presented with a level services budget in years.
I mean, at this point, if you count what Sean did last year and where we are this year, we're talking like what, 4.8 plus 3.5 at a minimum to start. We're way beyond that. I don't think that should be the first action step. I understand that there needs to be a definition of that, but that's not what we've been doing ever.
So a couple things. Number one is these were not written in any particular order. This was just a brainstorming. So we can put them in any order people want. I think it's more important for the public to understand, because it was clear to me a couple weeks ago that taxpayers hear a 3.5% increase and they're now expecting, rocket labs coming off the turf field.
But David, to be perfectly honest, it's pretty clear in the probably 70 emails I got, somebody sent the public a template, because almost every email I received said exactly the same thing.
Yes, I understand that this year was a bit contrived. I get that. But all I'm saying is that people do expect, when they hear budget increases, they do expect to see like a huge increase in services. And sometimes I don't think they understand how close or how expensive it is to open a school one year to the next. And so that's the only reason it's there. And again, it was not written in any particular order. So
I understand. I understand.
Yeah,
I just would prefer that not be the first bullet. That's all.
Okay.
And
again,
just to clarify, I mean, if I may, so when I think it was our final in-person meeting before all this went down, and it might have been joint ed. 3.5 literally opens the doors, right?
No.
Yes. I said that and you said yes. So if it's 3.6.5 or whatever it is, it's close enough. We can round. So, and that's the whole point. The public thinks that 3.5 is open the door, and it's, no one's hiding things here, but no, it's not very clear to the general public, and sometimes not to us, what that exactly means. And that's what I think this one bullet point, which can be the last one, I don't care, actually explains out to the general public.
I think that you eliminate the problem if you don't talk about a level services budget when you're not presenting one, and you talk about what the budget funds. We heard all about this. Everybody wrote about, don't give us a level services budget. And in fact, the 3.5% was nowhere near a level services budget.
What is the number?
And when we explained it, so, having been through level services, why start by saying this is a level services budget? I don't understand. This is the budget.
It's not, I wouldn't ever want to say this is a level services budget, but I think we should say to people, we estimate that next year level services will cost X. The city is giving us this increase. The superintendent has found another percentage in tightening things up. So we're going to start our discussions with this number, whatever it is. That's all. So it's not that this is a level service budget that we're getting, because no, we've never, at least I've never been in a year where we've gotten only a level services offer. But I think people need to understand that. That's all.
Let's move on.
Let's move on. Number three, number three was ways that we could change our meetings. And one of the things we talked about was holding working meetings at least twice a year in place of 2 monthly business meetings.
Amen. Agreed. Can we vote on that now?
Yeah, we've been saying that for 3 years, easy.
I know, I
Right.
know.
So, you know, like, for example, we had said in the other night in policy, we were talking about this fall, wouldn't it be awesome to have a working meeting that helped start the discussion about our new strategic plan?
Yes.
And we could bring in the students who've been working with that advisory group on having difficult discussions and that sort of thing. We could have a forum on that. So that's just one thing we talked about. We had also talked about the assistant superintendent's report. And Angela, we were asking about a more curriculum-driven report. And then the superintendent brought up his idea again about having a monthly district-led curriculum, instruction, and student life ad hoc committee where it'd be central office, school staff, a school committee member, students, parents, community members could get together to have a more detailed discussion of curriculum matters, student life issues. And then that group could then, a presentation from that group could come to the school committee as part of the assistant superintendent report. So they could have like the more detailed, for example, when every school came to talk to us about the remote learning plan, instead of our business meetings being 3 to 4 hours each night, the principals could have gone to this committee, done all the details, and then that committee could have then reported out as part of a school committee business meeting.
I like that idea.
Yep.
Sean
With
said he's
strong
got
support.
experience doing it in Beverly and that he would be able to come up with some more granular details on what that would look like that maybe we can discuss at the next meeting.
Yes.
And I would just recommend you change the language here. You know, on a scheduled rotating, the assistant superintendent's report ought to be based around content departments. You know, I mean, the school committee, I think your intent is great. And I think that I agree that we need to have curriculum updates and it just reword the language. I don't think it's written well. It shouldn't ought to be based around. I mean, it should be,
The
and I
word-
don't necessarily know that we need to include in a policy meeting the creation of this ad hoc group. I think it's
Right.
great that we do this, and
Yeah.
I think it makes sense. And that you just make reference to the, you know, the curriculum ad hoc committee reports quarterly to the school committee or something like that, just something more general.
The word odd is prescriptive. So I think if you've got some types of assessments that you're looking at or surveys, base it on those as opposed to being prescriptive.
I think the thinking is that we don't often hear, in fact, I can't remember the last time we did hear about like what is going on with the curriculum in math or wellness or history. And so again, the word ought was purposeful and prescriptive, purposely prescriptive because
Sure.
we don't hear about curriculum at all at our meetings.
No, and I think it just invites one to think of some type of survey or some other ways to assess, you know, what the content's like in those areas.
Okay, we can go back to that. We'll go back to that at the next meeting. And then there were just two things that came up in the last mask policy book. One was that they're suggesting school committee members have presentations and information at least 3 business days prior to the meeting, so that there's time to review everything, which I know, you know, it's always been a goal, which is why it's a goal. right? Sometimes it doesn't work out, but we should try to make that. And then that the regular agendas at our meeting should include both old business and new business portions.
And if, I think we should also be sure that the full agenda and supportive documentation, I think you should include this here, will be posted in accordance with the open meeting law, because obviously we're putting the agenda, but there needs to be more detail attached to the agenda.
I mean, is it safe to say that we should really be posting the packet?
Yes, it's what the school committee, it's what the city council does. I don't understand why we're not doing that.
I don't know.
We will be doing that.
Okay, great. All right,
Great, full agenda packet will
be
be
posted
posted.
at least, what, Thursday before or we should say days, because it could change to Tuesday, you know, on some.
At least
some
3
weeks,
days?
4 days, at least 3 days before, well, 4 days, I think makes more sense.
I think the mask thing,
Yeah.
the 3 days is for us, and then the 2 days is the legal obligation.
Okay,
I would say, you know,
Three.
yeah,
72 hours. Okay, that's good.
Okay,
I
great.
would follow the mask guidelines. You know what I
Okay.
mean? So that would be the minimum.
Terrific.
Okay, great. And this last one says that we're gonna start working on a strategic plan. And that we're gonna do so beginning no later than the summer before the current strategic plan is expired. So for example, this strategic plan we're currently working with is set to expire the end of next year. And that we should, beginning this summer, start talking about what the process is gonna look like to write a new one.
Can you just add, after updating the districts in the goal, can you add the 5-year? Because it is a 5-year strategic plan,
To format and implement the process.
the district's 5-year strategic plan.
Yeah. 5-year strategic plan. All right. Any questions on that?
That looks good.
So for this summer, you're looking for the process, right? You're not,
Yeah,
Right, we just start the process. Like, what are we gonna, and maybe we can use like time at the retreat. What's that gonna look like? How are we gonna get into figuring that out?
yeah, that makes sense, because we'd be busy this summer.
but I also think that you're also talking about the school committee hosts a public discussion on district's progress, but I think that we also need to, you know, I don't know, review first before we hold a public discussion.
Right, I think that would be part of the summer process. I think that's a good idea to utilize that for our retreat, a section of that for the retreat. And then by then I can probably give an update of the things that I think we've accomplished, the things that we're working towards, and then we can start talking about what.
So
the
maybe
process
add
would look like.
in that first bullet, we will ensure every year that the school committee reviews the status of the strategic plan.
During the summer retreat.
I don't even think we have to be that prescriptive, because we could decide we do it in May, who knows? And followed up with hosting a public discussion on the district's progress.
Great. All right, so Ms. Mary, you were going to look at the budget review, and then the policy committee has some things to take a look at, and we'll try to bring these 4 back for a vote on June 1st.
Sounds great. Can you send your update, your edits you made tonight to all of us?
I will.
Thank
You
David.
guys
Thank you to the
should already,
policy committee. Thank you.
you guys should actually already have this. This is the
No, but you
same.
made some edits tonight.
I know, but it's Google Docs, so that's live. It's a live
Oh.
document. You are,
Okay,
yep. So you should already have this.
okay. Thank you.
Magic.
Oof. All right,
Great. Thank you very much, policy.
Sean,
David.
I'm turning off share.
All right,
The next item on the agenda is Assistant Superintendent Angela Bick's report.
Thank you. I think Deb O'Connor is still here, right, Deb? John, you might want to, whoops.
I tried to send you back your video. Did it work?
Let me see, maybe.
Deb O'Connor is still muted.
No,
All right.
my video, I froze and then my video went out and it keeps telling me it can't restart video. So, but Deb is here. You can see her. And John just unmuted her just because I wanted Deb to be able to contribute to the first part of my report, which is about summer planning. Deb and I have been meeting with the summer planning team over the last several weeks, and we've also been collaborating in some of those meetings with youth services so that we can think about what's going to happen for summer. It's all an unknown right now, and everything that we're planning has two different phases, a remote phase and maybe a partial face-to-face component to it. But we'll see where we end up. But at least we just wanted you to know that we are in conversations. We're identifying our smaller groups that may need some support over the summer. And we've also talked about what kind of enrichment we might be able to do. So for example, when we're talking about some remote experiences, that's one of the things we discussed with youth services, is that we might do some enrichment work in the district, and perhaps they might do, we might do some supplemental work in the district, and they might do some enrichment kind of programming, like some STEM opportunities, a variety of things like that. So,
And Angela,
yes,
we are having a town hall on Thursday through the CPAC meeting.
yeah,
Around summer, and youth services is coming also, and we're all gonna each present a piece of what our plans are like. And we also sent a questionnaire to all the special ed parents who would receive extended year services as part of the IEP, asking what their preferences were. And people are all over the place. I mean, I will present it on Thursday, but people really don't know. That's the bottom line. We got about a 50% response, and everything's about 50%. So it's interesting. People are really, they're so unsure, just like, everybody else is and the governor is, and we're just not getting clear answers. So people are really not confident. So we have to provide a confident face on Thursday.
right. And I think youth services survey showed the same thing. Youth
Oh,
services.
good. Yeah, because they were going to do that too. Yeah.
Yeah, they sent out a survey, and their survey came back the same way. Just questions around, would you even send your children if we were open? They got a lot of response of, I don't know. It would just depend. People are unsure. So what they're looking for, all of those kinds of things. So, but it is in the works. So just so that you know, we're having discussions. If we have an opportunity to do some summer programming, in person, we were hoping to test out a little bit of a hybrid model over the summer, knowing that we may be facing that in the fall. So we were hoping we could use the summer with less children to kind of test a little bit of that. So if we're allowed to, we will.
Who knows?
Right. That's where we are right now. I also sent you a document that Deb and I worked collaboratively on, and that was the guidance for equity and inclusion for remote learning. And you received that, and it's got, 5 components around equity and inclusion, which are accessibility, flexibility, respectability, being proactive, and transparency. And it's really a guidance document for our faculty to use. So things that they should be taking into consideration as they're developing remote learning experiences for our students. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about that. One of the things that came out of our last meeting, I believe we were talking about some of our English learners and having an opportunity to have conversations. And I believe, Bruce, you said that you would be willing to have some conversations. We've had 2 high school students who have taken you up on that offer.
Great.
And they'd love to be able to talk to you kind of from just from the perspective of what's involved in being a school committee member. How does one become a school committee member? What is that role about? As well as in turn, you being able to talk to them about their future plans and what their hopes and dreams are for their future. So these are high school students, and we're working on connecting some of our elementary students with some of the volunteer youth through youth services, because some of our elementary English learners are a little more shy about having English conversations right now. So we thought that they might be more apt to have a conversation with another student.
Great.
We're working on that too. So maybe
Let me know.
Bruce.
Yep.
Okay. And they were very grateful. Thank you so much for being willing to do that. I think that that will be a really nice experience for them. And then last in my report, were there any questions about the guidance around equity and inclusion for Deborah before I move on?
No, it looks great.
I don't think so. I thought it was incredibly comprehensive, so thank you. I really appreciate you sending that.
Oh, good, good. Okay, great. And then I also sent you the overview on the ESSER fund, which is the CARES Act grant funding that the schools receive. So as you can see with this, you know, it's got a nice amount of flexibility that the grant can be used for a wide variety of purposes, which was very nice. There's much more flexibility than generally our federal grants that come through have. There are some restrictions on it. But right now I'm working with administrators, and we're really looking at viewing this grant from 4 perspectives, trying to prioritize within 4 categories. We're looking at what our assessment needs are going to be so that we can do some strong pre-assessment to get a really good idea about reentry and where our students are upon reentry and what the costs are going to be associated with that. We're looking at summer, the work that we might have to do around summer programming to try to close some gaps. We're also looking at some of the summer curriculum work that we might want to do so that we can have all of our teachers feeling confident and prepared about entering the fall with hybrid curriculum models in place so that we can go either way. If we're instructed to start that way, or even if unfortunately we could have a case and need to close the school. So we'd like teachers to feel really prepared for that in the case that we need to use it. The other category we're looking at is curriculum supports. What kind of support materials are we going to need to do that effectively? And then lastly is the category of technology. So, you know, when you look at the allowable activities, you'll see that many of those fit into this. When we're talking about summer and curriculum supports, we're not only talking about academics, but we are also talking about the social emotional health of our students and our faculty and what we need to put in place to ensure that everybody is feeling as safe as possible upon reentry. And so those are going to be the 4 categories. Another thing that came with this grant, which is really nice, is, or with the CARES Act, is the waivers that allow more flexibility in our other title grants. So we're really appreciative of that. We're taking a look at how our other title grants are written and how we might be able to take advantage of some of the flexibility that's available to us there. I will be reaching out to the IC and the private Montessori school in town because there's equitable service component to this grant for the private schools. And because we were fortunate in receiving the amount of money we did. Our grant total was $267,952. We have exceeded the $150,000 worth of funds, which mean we'll be responsible for reporting our expenditures on a quarterly basis to the Department of Ed. So, you know, I'll keep you informed as this evolves, and the turnaround for this grant is pretty quick. We need to submit by mid-June. So we're working pretty diligently on that to try to identify our needs and set our priorities in writing the grant.
Any questions for Angela? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Sean, superintendent's report.
All right, just a few things here, a few announcements. A couple weeks ago on May 7th, there was a National Art Honor Society virtual ceremony. I got to videotape myself ahead of time, and I was part of the program, but it was awesome. And I just really appreciate the teachers and Mr. Wolf doing the very best to do the best we can on these circumstances. So that presentation and virtual ceremony was awesome. And congratulations to all of those students. We're really proud of them. We also started the student belongings and at the NOC. So we've been collecting the student belongings, labeling them, put them in a bag, and there was curbside pickup today. I believe it was the 6th grade. And I think there was only about 12 students that did not pick up their belongings, but the principals work with the parents, and they'll be coming later this week. And then I think 7th grade is tomorrow, then 8th grade is the following day.
Hey, Sean.
So,
Sean, how was the line there? We had parents asking about how it was going to be managed.
it was pretty smooth. People were just coming up, and when I talked to Principal Furlong, she said it went very well, how it was organized. So
how were the smells in that hallway when they took all the bags out of the lockers? There's definitely lunch in my kid's locker.
It was. Yeah. He had the Ritz crackers, though. I think I took those out of there. So. And those were there. No. I just tell you that the students and everybody's just been very understanding and flexible. So that worked out well today, and we're doing that throughout the district. So, and then the next piece is to allow the teachers are going to be coming in to gather their belongings. But Steve and Kathy Riccio, working with the principals, have done a nice job. The other piece, and just working with Kathy Riccio, and as we're problem solvers. But we upgraded a SNAP program, which is the nursing program, to allow parents to sign online now the medical documents. Parents are going to be able to upload documents and notes and things like that, so they don't have to come in. And that's something the nursing department and Kathy Riccio is working on. So that's going to be, I think, a new protocol that's going to be very beneficial to avoid as much contact, especially now as we're closed with parents.
John, is that the yearly thing that the parents have to fill out?
Yeah, like they would have to come in and sign everything. So now we're going to have it online. So a lot of those medical documents through that program, because it's all confidential and it's all protected by HIPAA laws. So the programs that SNAP program is geared to the medical field and for school nursing. So that will all be online and working with the nursing department. So I think that's going to be a positive thing, and we'll have that all together. So the parents aren't going to have to come in and the handwritten notes and things like that. They'll be able to send messages to the nursing staff. And then just our special education department, and I know Deb's out there, but and she could just sit back and enjoy the compliments once again. But her and her team started the special education virtual IEP meetings. They've already, as of Friday of last week, they've already district-wide met with approximately 30 of the families. And they've scheduled every family to meet the timelines for the end of the year. So we're in good shape with that for the scheduling and then the effort of her team and reaching out to the parents. So we're in pretty good shape with that, and we should be meeting all those timelines that we were concerned about a couple of weeks ago. So that's been very positive too. And then what else do we have? Our food program, because of the PBT cards, that was sent out to the families, and those families, it's a card for food purchases. So we did have a reduction, not a significant reduction in the pickups, but we credit that because of those cards that went out to the families. So some of those cards are now having the ability to buy groceries on their own. So that was a great thing that Pam Cayley and her team got and sent out to make sure everyone has those. And then the last piece is we've been talking about pre-planning actions for us on the reopening. So I did reach out to the families and let them know we are pre-planning, but there is no guidance from the state. So we're not talking about what school's going to look like for students and staff. Our students and staff are our ultimate priority. But some of the pre-planning items that we've done is really like ordering. So we've ordered PPE orders for the nursing staff. And then we also ordered children masks and adult masks for the district. And our idea, we really believe if people are going to be wearing masks every day, that I'm sure the parents and adults will have their own masks. But if they don't, we'll be able to supply masks. We're anticipating that we're going to be wearing masks in school. We don't really know if that's the case, but we want to be ready for that. Our nurse's office, we're restructuring those ideas on the nurses giving out medication on a daily basis, and then separating another office for students that may be ill or staff that may be ill. So we're separating those type of nursing, procedures. And so we're working in all the different schools, for the ill students and staff, and then the medications. We modifying use of dividers and plexiglass. So we anticipate we'll be opening the offices, probably in June. So we're testing out some of the plexiglass barriers, and then we're also looking at plexiglass and barriers within the classroom. And there's different items out there that I have Steve Burkholm and Kathy Riccio looking at for that. And then just the ongoing review of technology updates like server, security, online signatures, different programs like that. And I know like for the IEP, the virtual IEPs, we do have the online signature capabilities now. So those are the types of planning we've been doing. Obviously, we're going to wait for the state and the city officials before we bring students and staff back. And then obviously everybody will be extremely well informed of the plan, but we're still waiting for guidance from the commissioner and the governor regarding the reopening of schools. So those are just some key updates from your superintendent. And I also want to thank Port Media for working with us for this. This is a live broadcast, and I think that that's a great thing. And then the other piece of that, and talking with them, there are capabilities for me to broadcast through Port Media on some of these upcoming changes when they start to happen, and we have some more information for the public.
Great, thank you, Sean. Any other questions for Sean? Move to subcommittee reports. Joint Ed met, Sean Reardon.
Sure, yeah, Joint Ed met today. A lot of the conversation was around the budget, so Sean gave him an overview of the budget we had just passed last meeting. He didn't talk about the stuff we talked about tonight. What else did we talk about? That was the bulk of the conversation. I think some of the counselors had a lot of questions on just process and looking forward to priorities and, goals that the superintendent sets each year and how's that play into the budget cycle. So again, most of the conversation was around budget. So it was a good conversation.
Thank you. FinCom.
Yes, we met on last Friday, the 15th. We did some internal transfers. Most of those were on supply lines, basically using, supply lines where there were funds to boost up supply lines where there weren't. Also instructional materials, also textbooks, things like that. We also talked about some of the topics that the superintendent went over earlier tonight, to include the priority lists and various opportunities for hopefully COVID reimbursements.
Terrific. Policy, obviously.
We met. I don't think there's anything more you guys need to hear from us.
All right. Superintendent's evaluation has not met. Mr. Cole, do we have any warrants?
Yes, we do. We have 3 warrants. I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate $36,299.95 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts.
Second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
The next warrant, I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate $629,814.40 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts.
Second.
Thank you, Sheila. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None?
In the last warrant, I move that the following named bills and payrolls of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate $14,061.48 be approved for the city auditor to make payment and deduct the funds from the school's account. There are no conflicts.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Terrific. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Do I have a chorus of seconds? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, and see you
Good
guys
night,
soon.
all.
Night.
Night. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Everyone.
Good night.